Okay, so let's dive into this really powerful idea about influence. And what's interesting is it has absolutely nothing to do with your job title or how much seniority you have. It's this type of strength that doesn't come from authority, but from something way deeper, something that's actually available to every single one of us.
I want you to picture this for a second. You're in a high-stakes surgery. All of a sudden, things start to go sideways. Alarms are beeping, there's a major bleed, and you can just feel the tension in the room spike. So who takes charge? You'd think the most senior surgeon, right? That's the obvious answer. Well, what if I told you the calmest, most effective person in that room, the actual leader, isn't who you'd expect at all?
And that question leads us to a real-life drama that actually happened in an operating room. It's a story about two doctors, one really critical procedure, and this one single moment where everything, and I mean everything, was about to fall apart. This is where we get to see what that deeper strength really looks like when it's put to the test.
And this is the central paradox. It's just wild. On one side, you have the senior doctor, the one with more experience, and he's panicking. His hands are fumbling. But on the other side, the junior doctor, totally calm. He doesn't just do his job, he literally takes control, stabilizes the patient, and, get this, he even calms his panicked senior colleague down.
So what was this junior doctor's secret? I mean, how did he pull that off? It obviously wasn't just about his technical skill. What we saw was a masterclass in how to act when the pressure is on. It was a kind of social and emotional genius that completely changed the outcome for everyone in that room.
Let's break this down. He was calm, of course, we saw that, but he also publicly praised the team, making sure they all felt seen and valued. He admitted his own mistakes right away, no ego, but here's the truly brilliant part. He was watching his senior colleague, and after seeing him use a very specific stitching technique just one time, he adapted on the fly. He used the exact same method, even the same tools, and that showed this incredible respect, which made his colleague feel valued, not one up.
You know, when it comes down to it, this was his superpower. In a room just crackling with stress, he managed the emotional temperature and made everyone feel comfortable and, capable. That's one path. But what happens when we do the complete opposite? All right, now let's flip the coin and see what happens when we go the other way. This next story, also from that same hospital, involves a senior nurse and a new colleague, and it might feel a little more familiar to us on a bad day.
Yeah.
This is the path most of us take without even thinking about it.
This was the feedback the nurse got from her mentor. And here was the situation. She was in this tense moment where a new, inexperienced colleague was mishandling the very last sterile instrument kit they had for a procedure. The patient was already under anesthesia, so, the stakes were really high.
And this was her own admission. She said this herself. She didn't yell, she didn't criticize out loud, but the stress was just so visible on her face that her colleagues were totally intimidated. Her expression alone built this wall of fear before she even said a single word.
Just think about that number for a second. 10. That's how many positive interactions it can take to undo the damage of just one negative moment like that. So this kind of nonverbal frustration, it's not a small thing. It's actually what triggers something the nurse's mentor called a vicious cycle.
And here's how that cycle works. It starts with a problem, right? Which leads to that flash of annoyance. Then you let it show on your face, the scowl, the tight jaw. That immediately creates a negative vibe, which makes it harder for anyone to think clearly and, well, what do you know? It makes the whole situation even worse.
So, the big question is, how do we break out of this destructive loop? How do we get on the doctor's path? Well, the answer comes from this ancient concept that completely flips our idea of strength. It shifts it away from something you impose on others to something you actually grow within yourself. The concept is仁者无敌, and basically it translates to the benevolent are invincible. Now, this isn't about being a pushover or being weak. It's an active kind of strength, where your own character and the way you act are so virtuous that they win people over without you ever having to fight. And at the very heart of this is a quality called renshi. The teacher in our story gives us just beautiful, simple, practical definition for renshi. It's the ability to give others joy. Just think about that for a second. The doctor gave his panicked senior colleague the joy of feeling respected. He gave the team the joy of being praised. That right there is the core skill of a benevolent leader. So here's a side-by-side of the two paths. The vicious cycle that starts with a mindset of blame. Why is this happening? But the benevolent path, it starts with a mindset of responsibility. How can we solve this? One leads to frustration and tension, the other to patient teaching and praise. And the outcomes, well, they couldn't be more different. Fear versus trust,
alienation versus respect, and bad results versus excellent ones. So how do you actually do this? Here's the actionable stuff. When you see a problem, take responsibility for the whole solution, not just your little part. If someone's struggling, it becomes your job to teach them patiently. Model the behavior of people you admire, like that doctor. And I love this last one. You literally practice your facial expressions in a mirror until a calm, helpful look is just your automatic default setting.
If there's only one thing you remember from all of this, let it be this. Focus all of your energy on solving the problem. The second you let frustration or blame into the equation, you stop being part of the solution, you become the new problem. So as you go about your day, just ask yourself this. In every single interaction you have, your face is your opening statement. It sets the tone for everything that's about to happen. What is yours saying?